This is CBC Here and Now.
I just want to see my people. I need to be home with my family. This time has taught me more than ever that the people around me are what's most important.
The rush to get home before new quarantine rules kick in tomorrow as the province deals with new restrictions just before Christmas.
About 240 students here at Memorial University are marooned on campus during the holidays, a consequence of this latest surge in the COVID-19 virus.
Sure, I'd love to go back home, but it's not safe right now.
I'm Terry Roberts. We'll have that story coming up.
I know of at least one present that will for sure be here before Christmas, but some of us are going to see some rain.
Welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain. New rules announced at an unexpected Sunday COVID news conference are changing Christmas plans for thousands of people. Anybody arriving after 3 p.m. tomorrow is going to have to isolate for 5 days, and that has people changing their plans. Peter Cowan reports.
It's already the busiest travel time of the year. Last year, the borders were closed for Christmas, and this year, thousands of expats were looking forward to spending Christmas with friends and family. So when health officials announced that people had 48 hours to get home or face 5 days of isolation, people started rebooking. Hairstylist Jacinda Macy works in Toronto.
So as soon as she said 3 p.m. on Tuesday, you have to isolate, I closed the feed and I opened my Air Canada app and I looked at my departing flight and I was like, oh, there's a flight tomorrow night, like tonight. And Monday night, and we could get in early Tuesday morning. I'm like, perfect. And I just moved it. And then I had to go down to my receptionist and be like, I'm really sorry, I need your help. I had to get home for Christmas. And she had to move appointments for me. And thankfully, all my clients were so lovely about it.
She paid an extra $600 to make the change, and she wasn't the only one. As of this morning, there wasn't a single seat available on any flight flying into St. John's before the deadline. One person paid $1,400 to snag the only business class seat available. All knew they had to get home.
So my initial reaction was to absolutely cry my eyes out because I thought that I wasn't going to be able to come home for Christmas. But luckily I was able to change my flight. So it was kind of a whirlwind of emotions there for about an hour.
Health officials said they waited 2 days to bring in the measures to give people time to plan, not rebook, but instead make arrangements for isolation.
We have tried to give people time to be able to cancel their plans if they had them in place. I think everybody across the country realizes the gravity of this situation and understands the gravity of this situation. So, I think cooler heads will prevail and people will make the decision.
Not everyone could get an earlier flight, but they're still coming. It means everyone in the house is going to need to isolate over Christmas. Shannon Conway's flight arrives 30 minutes after the deadline, so she's stuck isolating, and her family will too.
Felt like my arriving there was just kind of stopping all of the plans. And it certainly has altered things and changed things, but we managed to adapt to it.
Almost 2 years into COVID, many Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are more determined than ever to find a way to spend Christmas with those they love.
This is my first Christmas in 6 years, and I just keep thinking the longer COVID goes on, the less time I have to see my people. And I even making plans with people, I was like, honestly, I just want to stay home. I just want to see my people. I need to be home with my family. This time has taught me more than ever that the people around me are what's most important.
Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
All right, well, let's recap what these measures are. So starting tomorrow at 3 p.m., anyone arriving has to isolate for 5 days and take daily rapid tests. The delay is to give people time to plan, so if people decide to isolate with family, then everyone in the house is going to have to isolate. There's also a lockdown in central Newfoundland with communities in the area of Badger, Grand Falls, Windsor, Gander and Twillingate moving to alert level 3. Travel in and out of the area should only be done for essential reasons. The mayor of Twillingate is in isolation while the mayor of Gander is urging people to follow the rules and get through it all together.
About a week ago, myself, my wife and our 3 kids were actually close contacts to 2 different positive cases here in Central. So we've been in isolation since then. We got tested in the beginning, all came back negative, thank God. And we just got our second test about 2 hours ago. So now we'll be 24 hours of waiting to make sure that comes back negative as well.
There is a lot of frustration, there's a lot of disappointment, particularly this time of year. There is a lot of fatigue. But my message to people really is to just try to keep things in perspective. There's a lot of people missing loved ones this time of year that have nothing to do with COVID. There's a lot of people in distressed circumstances, at this time of year and throughout the year It has nothing to do with COVID. And, we're all in this together.
Well, now to some numbers. More than 24 new cases of COVID-19 in the province today. So let's take a look at the data. There are 27 new cases. 4 of them are in the eastern region, 10 new cases in central, and 13 cases in the west. So that makes for 154 active cases of COVID-19 right now in the province. Now, Twillingate Clinic had to cut back services today. Central Health says due to a shortage of workers, lab services have been reduced to emergencies only until there's further notice. The province has an extensive list of possible exposure warnings as well, 63 in total. They include a Shoppers Drug Mart in Corner Brook, and anybody who was there Thursday evening and much of yesterday should get tested. There's also a warning for confusion. That's confusion spelt with a K to avoid any confusion. That's a downtown St. John's dance club. Anybody there from 10 p.m. onwards on Saturday night should also arrange for testing. Now, for the complete list of these exposure sites spanning right across the province, please visit gov.nl.ca/COVID-19. Big news for students and teachers with the announcement that schools are closing early for the Christmas holidays. Students have been advised to take everything home with them just in case learning moves back to online education in 2022. Fingers crossed that that will not happen. But here now is Jeremy Eaton is standing by in our newsroom with the very latest. So Jeremy, what more can you tell us?
Well, Anthony, it's an announcement parents and teachers didn't really have on their wish list. Students had just today to go back to school, gather up all their things, and say their goodbyes before heading into an uncertain holiday break. Now, one thing that was weighing on the minds of the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District, like a lump of coal, 13 of their schools have confirmed cases of COVID-19, meaning they have to figure out how and when everyone will return to class or what will happen January 4th. So they could be in class or they could be online.
It may be purely a public health decision, or there may be operational impacts. So right now, for example, because of the isolation requirement for anybody who's a contact, regardless of if you've been vaccinated or not, then that calls into question our staff availability. So we may have to make geographical decisions. There may be some schools virtual, some not. It depends on the circumstances. But I have to say, between the government, public health, ourselves, we've had good dialogue, always with a view of putting what's in the best interest of students first.
So while students only had today, the teachers will remain in their classrooms for the next 2 days, preparing for the possible shift back to online learning. And today's stack had nothing but admiration and praise for those teachers.
Boy, they've gone above and beyond. And, it's been a difficult year for parents, for students, and all the staff to navigate. We've done really well. There's been some challenges at the end of the year. It's not how we wanted this 2021 to close out, but we'll have a good day today where people can get their items. And then the next 2 days, teachers will focus on what's next for January.
Now, for its part, the Newfoundland and Labrador Teachers Association sees the change to K-12 Christmas break as a positive move. So in a statement today, the Teachers Association said that erring on the side of caution is best and that it's called for a more cautious approach throughout the pandemic. The NLTA says it's working with the school board on operational details for this week. So while students across the province get an early break for the holidays, the rush is on for booster shots. So here in St. John's, we saw long lineups today looking for the third jab. So just like here, you can see at this Shoppers Drug Mart on Lamarchant Road, people were lined up long before the store even opened this morning. Now they're operating on a first come, first served basis, and with COVID cases rising, folks didn't want to wait. Now, there's also a makeshift clinic at the Village Mall that you see here, which also saw a lot of foot traffic, but you need to have an appointment booked here before arriving. And if you haven't booked one, chances are you'll have to wait. Now, I reached out to Eastern Health earlier today to try to figure out when it would, because if you went on the website right now, you wouldn't be able to get an appointment at the Village Mall, and that's the only location in St. John's right now that's taking appointments. So if you're still waiting to hear back from them about the update on those booster shots, but the hope is that more of the vaccine will soon arrive and that the demand will be filled. But for many, it might be a late Christmas gift. Reporting live from the newsroom, I'm Jeremy Eaton for Here and Now.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. Now, this latest surge is causing upheaval for people looking to travel during the holidays, and this is especially noticeable at Memorial University for international students. And as Terry Roberts reports, dozens of them have decided to stay put, and the university is doing what it can.
Shoryang Shavali is a third-year business student in St. John's. He'll be spending the holidays 11,000 kilometers away from his family in India, but he's okay with that.
I plan on lazing around, going out with friends, having a good time. Nothing too grand.
About 240 Memorial University students, and in some cases their family members, are stuck here on campus during the holidays. And because of beefed up public health restrictions, hospitality will take a back seat to safety and security.
As we all know, Omicron has disrupted lots of travel plans, and for safety and security in particular, students have chosen not to go. Some can't go, and so for all those reasons, we opened the doors this year to say, stay with us, we'll take care of you, and don't have any worry.
The university is hiring extra temporary staff to accommodate the unexpected guests. Some employees have agreed to work during the holidays. But are there plans to show these homesick students a good time?
Well, we'd love to, but the restrictions that are associated with the escalating levels have caused us to draw back. So really we're focused on the individual experience and making sure that they're safe and secure.
This student says the short break and high travel cost influenced his decision to stay on campus. But the COVID situation in India also played a role.
Sure, I'd love to go back home, but it's not safe right now. And I don't want my family to worry about me, to be another nuisance, Like I want to stay put here, be safe. It was a very deliberate choice. I don't mind it at all.
The campus is now eerily quiet, but for the students still here, they'll have everything they need at a cost of just $19 per day.
We have kitchens in each of the buildings. Students will be able to cook and clean and take care of their own needs and hopefully have a little bit of enjoyment. We incur most of the costs ourselves because of the extra staff and everything, but that's not an issue. Money's no factor when you consider the safety and security of students.
The big question now is how this campus will look on January 4th when the winter semester is scheduled to begin. University leaders are crossing their fingers that there will be some pandemic relief and that full in-class learning will resume as planned. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, it was definitely a chilly start to the day across parts of the island. Let's take a look at those numbers. Minus 23 today in Badger, at least this morning. Those temperatures were steady at about -5 for most of the day in St. John's, but the temperatures across Labrador, overnight low minus 29 in Lab City today. Now, there's not a whole lot going on weather-wise. We do have an area of low pressure just to the west, bringing some cloud cover in across Labrador, but a ridge of high pressure there is dominating the weather for the most part, but it is leading to some chilly temperatures this afternoon, like I said, and that cold air is going to stick with us. And then we've got our next weather maker that is moving in. Special weather statement already in effect. Now, this will be from Wednesday night through Thursday, and it is going to bring some snow with it, along with some rain for parts of the island, but I will get into all the details when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. A new survey of med school students at MUN in St. John's suggests that although as many as 80% of graduates would prefer to stay and work in Newfoundland and Labrador, only around 55% actually do. A group of doctors released the results, which broadly examined recruitment and retention issues among physicians in the province. The study surveyed 294 students who graduated between 2003 and 2018 and found a large gap between the number of people who originally wanted to practice medicine in Newfoundland and Labrador compared to those who are actually currently working in the province.
Are things that we can do to help fix things, because it tells us that people want to be here, and I think that if people didn't want to be here, we'd have a lot more work to do. So it's kind of a good thing in some ways that people do want to be here, but we need to listen to, we need to first ask and then listen to people to understand how can we get physicians to work in Newfoundland. And this study, I think, is an important first step in that conversation and having that understanding.
O'Keefe says many new doctors are proactively approached by other provinces with detailed contracts and information about supports to set up their own practice. Well, the Roman Catholic Archdiocese in St. John's says it may be forced to file for creditor protection under the Bankruptcy Act. The courts found the church liable for physical and sexual abuse at the Mount Cashel orphanage between the 1940s and 1960s, and it must pay settlement claims to the victims. In a letter to parishioners, Archbishop Peter Hunt says if they pursue bankruptcy, it will give them time to evaluate their assets and develop a proposal for creditors to settle victim claims and other creditor liabilities. Now, in that letter, Hunt wrote, "This action, if pursued, is intended to provide the Archdiocese with additional time to complete the evaluation of our assets." Also, a call for claims against the Archdiocese and develop a proposal for our creditors to settle victims' claims and creditor liabilities. Hunt also says each parish will be given a set amount to operate, and their ability to be self-sufficient will be a major factor in determining which stay open. He wrote, quote, "The cash reserves of the parishes and the Archdiocese will be dedicated to meeting our financial obligations to our creditors." Now, Hunt says many church properties will have to be sold. Meanwhile, the lawyer for some of the victims says this move by the Archdiocese isn't unexpected, but Jeff Budden says the rights of the victim must come first.
The interests of survivors will be centered in this, will be asserted, we will do everything we can do to make sure and advocate as aggressively as we need to make sure their needs are prioritized. There are many needs here. There are parishes that need to be looked after. There is the institutional church. However, the survivors must come first, and we will insist on that, and we'll be there fighting for that.
A minor league hockey team in St. John's is helping make the season kind by giving more than 2,000 pounds of vegetables to the Community Food Sharing Association, which supports local food banks in the province. And some young players from the Avalon Celtics under-11 team dropped off their generous donation over the weekend just in time for the holidays.
Back in the fall, we decided we'd host a fundraiser selling vegetable hampers for Christmas, raise money for our team, and as an option, we thought it would be neat if we added in the Community Food Sharing Association, so we reached out to them and gave our supporters an opportunity to purchase a hamper and have it donated. It would be a win-win because they sponsored our team, and they also sent their vegetables off to a family or people in need across the island. Well, I think, you know, it's more than hockey. It's teaching them about giving back. It's teaching them about being teammates and leadership and community citizens. And this was a great opportunity for them to get involved. It raised money for our team, but it also did a lot of good at a time of need for our community. And, you know, we want to teach these young men and women that, you know, there's more to hockey than just playing on the ice.
Yeah, we're donating vegetable hampers to the Community Food Sharing Association, so they have food for Christmas and for their families.
This is a good thing to do, in my opinion.
It's a nice thing to do, especially when you're out here with your friends and you're doing something nice for the community.
Well, it's important. It's just I like helping people and helping families.
We raised $4,700 for our team, and we donated 2,500 pounds of vegetables to the Food Sharing Association. That's 160 bags. Every bag has about 15 pounds of vegetable, which would be ample supply, I think, for a Christmas dinner.
Well, the next couple of days look a little bit quiet, but as we head towards the end of the week, even through Christmas, we've got a couple of systems on the go. I'll get into those details when I come back.
This year, we're connecting more, we're sharing more, and we're helping more. This season, whatever kind of season you make it, make the season kind.
Omicron, nerves, so much has changed so quickly. Quebec shutting things down today, a very serious situation evolving in Nova Scotia as well. New rules for our province about to come into effect for travel, as well as what was announced yesterday. So with Central Newfoundland now in level 3, joining me is the Mayor of Twillingate, Justin Blackler, who himself was tested earlier today for COVID-19 along with his family, and he's in self-isolation. So Justin, what's going on?
It's a good question. I think everyone's trying to figure out what's going on now. About a week ago, myself, my wife, and our 3 kids were actually close contacts to 2 different positive cases here in Central. So we've been in isolation since then. We got tested in the beginning, all came back negative, thank God. And we just got our second test about 2 hours ago. So now we'll be 24 hours waiting to make sure that comes back negative as well.
So you said 2 different contacts. So you and your son and you and your wife, can you tell me a bit more about that without giving too much away?
No, absolutely. We're pretty heavily involved in the hockey scene. My wife and my daughter were actually playing in a AAA tournament there last weekend. And me and my son and my younger son were gone to a couple of games in Central with the Adam team. So we do a lot of traveling and we're on the road a lot. So it's not, no trouble to be exposed at different sites. So that's where we're to right now and that's what we're living with. So that was how it came about.
All right, so this is you and your son on one side and then your wife and daughter on the other side?
Yeah, so we decided to isolate together. So all 5 of us have been isolating together and surviving, surprisingly. But so we're doing well.
So it's obviously going to be a very cozy Christmas since you're all in your house, just 5 days to go. Now let me ask you a question as the mayor. Obviously your own experience shows you that these contacts can happen pretty quickly, right?
Very quickly, yeah, no doubt. It doesn't take a lot. We had an exposure here. We had the Combines Hockey League back started up this year, which is great to see. And we ended up having a contact out of there our first weekend in the rink. So it can happen pretty quickly. And from what we're seeing around the world and in Canada, Newfoundland, it can spread pretty quickly too.
So what was the lineup today as you were getting tested? What was it like?
So we made what we thought was a smart decision. We left a half hour early to go down to the testing site. When we got there, I think we were number 100 in line. So we waited just over 3 hours to get in. But I mean, the staff, Central Health staff were doing their best. They had the parking lot full. It was actually coming up the road in front of the church back towards my house. A lot of people, from what I can gather, got turned around and they got to go back tomorrow. They were given numbers. So there will be a testing site there again tomorrow if you got your number today.
All right, so it sounds like things will be pretty busy before Christmas. Listen, as the mayor, give me a sense of what, what's the mood like in Twillingate as everybody kind of accepts, okay, here we are, level 3, just a few days before Christmas.
I think the moods vary. I think everyone's, in the same spot, frustrated. Nobody wants to be here, especially Christmas time. A lot of big stuff goes on at this time, like any time during Christmas. I mean, we're well known for the mum ring, something that you probably won't see as much this Christmas. A few big hockey tournaments on the go, things we had to shut down as a town, things we don't want to shut down, but it's, safety first. And obviously we don't want anybody at risk during the Christmas holidays. So we've had to make a few tough decisions and shut things down. But I mean, to say that people are dealing with it well would be probably misleading. Everybody's frustrated, but I can, pretty well guarantee that people at Twillingate will do what you got to do. They're pretty hardy people. So they're frustrated, but they're going to make Christmas the best they can for sure.
All right. Well, listen, obviously wish you nothing but the best. I'm glad that you've tested negative and hope it stays that way. Thanks a lot for your time and Merry Christmas to you and your family. Hope you make the best of it.
Thank you, sir. Same to you.
Well, let's move from Twillingate. Joining me now just down the highways, 331 or 340, depending on how you get there, is the Mayor of Gander, Percy Farwell. So, Mr. Farwell, what do you make of what you've just heard from your mayoral colleague in Twillingate?
Well, I certainly empathize with him and certainly wish Justin and his family well and his community well.
Gander, of course, a bigger hub, people driving from Twillingate and then from the Eastport Peninsula, Gambo in the east, and then you've got Appleton, Lewisport in the west. What do these new restrictions mean for a hub like Gander that has so much traffic from these sister communities?
Well, I guess, an outbreak anywhere within our catchment area, of course, Gander is always at risk of exposure because we are a hub, a service hub for a lot of these lovely communities around us. So it's, we understand that there's a lot of concern out there in the region and certainly here in town where we have been actually placed in alert level 3 ourselves. We're just going to do what we can to minimize exposure to both our own citizens and those that have reason to come and be here during this time.
I'm not sure what the sentiments are, in Gander and other parts of central Newfoundland, but I think here in the east in St. John's on the Avalon, there's a sense of a little bit of fatigue and are you kidding me? This is happening again. And I wonder, as a municipal leader, how do you guard against that so that people, sort of say, take a deep breath, we're going to batten down the hatches once more, Christmas is here. What's your message to people?
Well, I know there is a lot of frustration, there's a lot of disappointment, particularly this time of year. There is a lot of fatigue. But my message to people really is to just try to keep things in perspective. There's a lot of people missing loved ones this time of year that have nothing to do with COVID. There's a lot of people in distressed circumstances, at this time of year and throughout the year that has nothing to do with COVID. And, we're all in this together. The COVID thing, we can take positive actions and control it and ultimately conquer it, I guess. But it's just, let's keep things in perspective, and this too shall pass if we all do what we're obligated to do, really, in the interest of looking out to our fellow citizens and those in our surrounding communities and so on.
And I can't talk to the Mayor of Gander without asking at least one aviation question. As you know, new travel regulations go into effect. Does this have a particularly, a different effect on Gander, given that you do, as you mentioned, you have an airport?
And that's been a sort of a residual of the pandemic from day one in terms of the disruption to the traveling public who really don't have a choice but to travel if they're going to earn a living.
Listen, it seems almost difficult and counterintuitive to say Merry Christmas, but I really wish the best to you and the people of Gander and all the people of Central at this difficult time of year. But hopefully we can find ways to celebrate with our families and friends regardless, even if it's from a distance or online and Zoom as we're doing right now. So thank you very much for your time and good luck over the next few days and weeks.
Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it. You too.
In light of the new provincial COVID guidelines, people are being asked to work from home when and wherever possible, and we here at CBCNL, well, we're no exception. Ashley is going to be reporting from home for the next little while, so the same solid forecasts, just from a little bit further away. So Ashley, how's it going over there?
It's going okay, but for the next week or maybe even a couple of weeks, who knows? You may hear drizzle make an appearance for sure, so definitely sorry about that if it does happen, but a nice day to stay inside for sure. It was a bit chilly out there this afternoon. We did see a few flurries as well, but let's take a look at those temperatures across the board this afternoon. Stayed steady around -5 today in St. John's. Those temperatures recovered quite nicely from this morning through Central, Badger at -4 this afternoon, and then those temperatures across Labrador, -20 in Lab City this afternoon. Now, the reason for that is we are under a ridge of high pressure, and that ridge of high pressure is bringing in some of that colder air thanks to that northerly flow, and that will generally continue as we head through the evening hours tonight. That area of low pressure likely bringing a few flurries to Lab West, but overall not a whole lot happening as far as that wind goes. Wind sustained right now out of the north or northwest, somewhere between 10 to even 20 kilometers per hour, sustained at about 41 in Bonavista right now. But that is leading to some pretty chilly wind chills out there. -12 is what it feels like in St. John's at the moment, -16 in Gander, and those temperatures, or rather the wind chills, into close to the -20s, even close to -30 for parts. And that is generally what we're going to see through the overnight tonight under clear skies generally. Maybe a few flurries for the west coast and along central Newfoundland, southern Newfoundland, and then same thing for Lab West overnight tonight. Not anticipating too much in the way of accumulation, but you could pick up a couple centimeters on the west coast. Now, temperatures should be in the minus single digits overnight tonight, minus double digits through central and the interior, much like we saw last night. Same thing for the northern peninsula, and then nearing those -20s for Labrador as well. Like I said, some wind chill values. Your wind chill values mainly in Lab West and towards the coast could be into the -30s overnight. Now, as we head through the day tomorrow, certainly in the morning, we're going to start to see some light snow develop along the west coast, south southern areas of Newfoundland as well, and some pockets of some heavier snow may develop for eastern areas as well. But as we head into the afternoon, then we're going to see that transition to potentially some showers, or at least ending as showers along the south coast, and you can see that there in the green, and then that heads towards eastern Newfoundland as we get into the evening hours tomorrow. Between 7 or 8 o'clock, we likely see some showers, and then continue through, say, 10, 11, and then we get back into some of that colder air, and the potential for flurries will return. So as far as that snowfall accumulation goes, this is what we're looking at. Anywhere from a trace to as much as 2 centimeters by morning for the west coast. And then tomorrow is when we could see some of those heavier squalls develop, some heavier periods of snow. 5 to 10, even 10 to 15 is possible for areas along the west coast. So we may see a swath of that as well through central, but generally looking at about 2 to 5 centimeters right across the board. But again, some areas and some of the heavier snow could pick up between 5 to 10 by the time we get into Wednesday morning. Not a whole lot happening up across Labrador. You're looking at about a trace to 2 centimeters through the day. Now, temperatures tomorrow will be a little bit warmer than what we're seeing today. They'll hover in and around 0 degrees and then warm up in the evening, like I said, for eastern areas. So St. John's will hover around 0 degrees for most of the day, maybe reach 1 or 2. We see that transition to the potential for some showers, and then that's when those winds are going to shift. So they'll be westerly to start the day and then switch to southerly about 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Otherwise, I have that chance of flurries in for the rest of central towards the west coast, and those winds will be a bit breezy, southerlies between 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. As we head towards the big land, that temperature much cooler though, into the minus double digits, minus 14 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. Similar along the coast, however, a bit more sunshine in play for you. And then those winds will be brisk in the west, about 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. So that's a look at your forecast for tomorrow. We are looking ahead to Wednesday night into Thursday when the next weather maker moves in. It does look like some significant snow is possible for parts of the island, maybe even Labrador. I'll break that down for you coming up.
COVID-19, prison guards, healthcare workers, and the NLC. It's been quite the year for NAPE, and 2022 will also be dramatic.
Our members has been challenged on many fronts, from our student assistants in schools, to our healthcare workers, to our social workers, to our correctional officers. This has been an extremely challenging year.
I'm Chrissy Holmes. Hope you can join us New Year's Eve for a special look back at some of our very favorite stories from 2021.
Miss Hillings. What? I actually won the Braille Challenge.
You what? Every single message meant the world to us.
I graduated from Bishop's College in '66.
I always loved working at the video shop, and I've missed it ever since.
Join us for a special New Year's Eve edition of Here and Now, Friday, December 31st.
Well, for thousands of healthcare workers and other members of NAPE, 2021 was just as demanding as 2020, maybe even more so. And now with Omicron, 2022 doesn't exactly look like it's going to be a pushover either. The provincial government's cupboard is bare. There are whispers of selling off the NLC or possibly other government assets. There's collective bargaining. Well, tonight, a feature interview with the president of NAPE, and I started my conversation with Jerry Earle by asking him to reflect on the impact of 2021 on government workers during the second year of COVID.
For the members of our union and for those that represent them, this has been an extremely challenging year, just like it's been for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. But I think when we may have talked this time last year, we were hoping that this year would have been better. That didn't play out, and our members has been challenged on many fronts, from our student assistants in schools to our healthcare workers, to our social workers, to our correctional officers. This has been an extremely challenging year, as it's been for, like I said, most people in Newfoundland and Labrador.
So if we talk about the bulk of your members who work in healthcare, obviously with the coronavirus and the pandemic, it's been a difficult year. We've seen some of the strains in the hospitals. So talk to me a little bit about what's been specifically for the people who work in the hospitals.
For the people that work in the hospitals, you can only imagine, because they all got their own families, they got their loved ones that they're worried about. They're going to work knowing that there's people that certainly need care, whether it be in our long-term care facilities or hospitals. People are frustrated, the general population. We're seeing procedures cancelled and that. And there's these members on the front line that bear the brunt of all of this, trying to explain it, not sometimes those that make the decision. So it's frontline workers. So you can only imagine, like, they work around the clock. Most of our workers, whether it be our paramedics or licensed practical nurses, all of those, and not only putting in their regular hours, and they've been putting in above and beyond. So they're expected on their days off. When they go to work, they're not sure they're getting off on shift at 8 o'clock. They're working 16-hour days, 24-hour days. When they manage to get a day off, the phone is ringing and asking them to come back to work. And the thing is, they're all stepping up. Right. I've heard very few complaints from our healthcare workers. Are they tired? Absolutely. Are they being burnt out? Absolutely. But we're not hearing the complaints that you would expect. So that's kudos, and I gotta say kudos to them. They have done yeoman service here in this province, and to be applauded for this is almost 24 months being in this pandemic.
And if you look at your brothers and sisters in the nurses union,
absolutely,
they've talked about their burnout,
yes.
And we've heard and we've reported on backfill stories where people have to work 24-hour shifts. We saw over the summer that the system was really buckling.
Yes.
Here we are in the Christmas period. It feels a bit similar to what happened in the summer. Now we've got Omicron.
Yes.
So looking ahead to next year, what are your concerns?
Our concerns is how long can these workers keep up to the demands that they're on. Our healthcare system was in trouble before we went into this pandemic. You heard us talk about shortages and healthcare is a massive team of individuals. Our lab and x-ray staff behind the scenes that are not seen often, that are doing all these tests, not only for these viruses, but for multiple other procedures. Respiratory technologists and technicians, we know the shortages. We've heard cases this summer where, for example, open heart surgery has been cancelled. It wasn't because of a shortage of registered nurses or doctors, it was because of a shortage of cardioperfusionists. There's only 6 or 8 in the entire province. At one point we were down to 3. So there's a number of people that make up the healthcare team, and when any of those links are weakened, the healthcare system, it's a ripple effect throughout. So for everyone in this system, nobody realizes the impact behind the scenes. Because, like I said, we have members in a number of diverse classifications. You've seen what's been happening with the paramedics over the last year. Well, that's been going on for years, really pronounced this year. So the strain of the work alone, and then now people last year, just like I said, was hoping for a break this year. Now they're hearing about Omicron, and they're basically saying we're in for
another year.
Another year.
I want to ask you a question about politics, the financial situation of the province, because it seems to me that even before the pandemic got going, there were a lot of political conversations about, okay, we have to reform, maybe cut, make budget reductions. And I wonder if the pandemic, in a way, has actually put a stop on taking action against people who work in the healthcare system, whether it's finding a different pay structure for nurses, doctors, or the people you represent.
I think the pandemic, and there's really not a lot positive to this pandemic, but one thing it's done is shine a light on the value of, these employees were always valuable. The value of their work now in the healthcare system and what public sector employees do, because they have worked throughout this pandemic in many areas. I think their work has been really valued. And again, I have to applaud the efforts of the entire public sector, what they have done through this pandemic, and many other workers in retail and those areas, like they have went above and beyond. But when you look at what the public sector has stepped up done, like you said, in healthcare, people have no idea the hours that these women and men put in these various jobs every day. And during the pandemic, have went above and beyond. Like I said, 16 24-hour days, weekends where they're supposed to have 2 or 3 days off, getting 1 day off. And they get because you remember, they all got families. They all live in our communities across Newfoundland and Labrador. So when they're trying to say to their child, I'm not going to be home this evening because I got to work, and even arranging something simple as childcare. You cannot abandon your child, but when you go to work in the mornings, most of our workers are saying, I do not know when I'm going home. And that's true right across Newfoundland and Labrador.
All right, so Jerry Earl, now the Newfoundland and Labrador Liquor Corporation and other government assets, they're under review for a potential sale. There's no question the province needs cash. Part 2 of my interview with NAPE President Jerry Earl tomorrow on Here and Now. Well, some breaking national news. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly says she's tested positive for COVID-19. Ms. Joly tweeted out the results of a rapid test. They came back positive, and she's now going to isolate and work virtually. Joly is urging people not to rely on tests alone, to get vaccinated, and to continue following public health measures. Well, the number of breakthrough COVID-19 infections is increasing in Canada as the Omicron variant continues to spread. People who have had 2 shots or even 3 doses of vaccine can still get sick, but they are at much less risk of severe disease or even death. According to one expert, breakthrough infections are inevitable, and that's due to simple math.
When you look at the risk of getting infected and you compare an equal number of vaccinated and unvaccinated people, the unvaccinated people are still 10 to 15 times more likely to, be hospitalized because of COVID. So the relative difference between vaccinated and unvaccinated is still there. It's just we're seeing more vaccinated people because there are more of them out there in the population.
Now, some good news in the fight against Omicron. Moderna says its booster dose of COVID-19 vaccine should offer strong protection against the variant. The drug maker says preliminary data suggest just a half-dose booster shot can increase by 37 times the level of so-called neutralizing antibodies, and that rises to 83 times with the full booster. There's no place like home, especially during the holidays, but some people in British Columbia who were forced to flee after catastrophic flooding last month, well, they're still waiting to get back home. Renee Filipponi checked in with residents who won't be home for the holidays and who are trying to deal with that fact, as well as the people who are trying to help make the season a little happier.
The water kind of went all the way, filled the whole thing.
The damage is overwhelming for the Bowmans, who were evacuated in the middle of the night as water poured into their Merritt home.
Oh, Papa, look at the carpet.
It will be months before they're able to go home, something the children long for.
I kind of miss, like how it looks. It looks all dirty and it used to look all shiny.
Christmas will be spent in the 1-bedroom basement suite of this family member's home, where they will focus on what matters.
We're all safe, we're all taken care of, and we still have each other. In the end, just the material things, they come and go, they can be taken away from you so soon.
More than 1,000 people in BC are still out of their homes, spending the holiday season picking up what's left of their lives and figuring out what can be salvaged. Lee McLeod is still living in a Kelowna hotel, where he doesn't want to spend Christmas.
To not be home for Christmas, well, that's going to be a little bit, it's kind of a loneliness sort of a deal, eh? Well, loneliness and homesick.
To make this season brighter, this donation center in Abbotsford is giving out food and toys.
We're doing what we can do to hopefully make what will probably be a very sad Christmas for a lot of people, hopefully a happier one.
Krista Spitters shows up with a box of toys to donate, despite losing her home and farm to the floods. Seeing how the community has come together is emotional, and she is glad she has family to stay with this Christmas.
I really have a hard time thinking about those that don't have, and it hurts.
And that's why this season of giving is so important here, especially when so many have lost so much. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Abbotsford.
Welcome back. Well, if you're growing weary of shorter days and shrinking sunlight, not to worry. Tomorrow is winter solstice, and that means a little more daylight is just around the corner. The CBC's Fiona Odlum explains.
The winter solstice marks the first day of astronomical winter. It's also the day with the shortest amount of sunlight. But what actually happens on the day of the winter solstice? This year, it's happening on Tuesday, December 21st at exactly 9:59 a.m. Central Standard Time. We know the exact minute because it's when the Earth's axis is pointed the furthest away from the sun. This means the sun's path is as low in the sky as it can get, even at high noon. A fun thing to do on the day of the winter solstice is to head out around noon. That's where you'll see your shadow, and it'll be the longest shadow you'll see all year. It's all thanks to the angle of the sun. Try standing in the same place on the summer solstice, and you will barely see your shadow. While the solstice does mark the beginning of winter, it also marks the beginning of more sunlight. So enjoy that sunshine arriving soon.
Well, like Fiona was talking about with our shadow, the reason for that is because the sun angle is so low, only at about 19 degrees. But the good news is after today, or tomorrow rather, we are going to see that sun angle improve. And by the time we get to summer, it's 66 degrees. So winter will officially arrive here on the island anyway at about 12:28 tomorrow, and it does look like it will be a not too bad day. We'll certainly see some winter weather on the west coast, but as we head through and into Wednesday, we're looking at those temperatures dipping again back into the minus single digits. This is a few degrees below where we should be this time of year, but we are looking at that chance of flurries with some sunshine in the mix as well, and maybe a few showers down along southern areas of the island. As far as Labrador goes, temperatures will be into the minus teens through the day on Wednesday with some sunshine. And again, some flurries will stick around for Lab West. Now, Wednesday night into Thursday is when we're going to see our next weather maker move in, and we'll time that out for you. So this is Thursday morning. That's when we should already be seeing snow for a good chunk of the island. And this one does look like, if it takes this track, there's a number of tracks, but this one specifically, heading across eastern Newfoundland, does look like the eastern half of the island, or at least eastern Newfoundland, should change over to rain through a period of potentially some ice pellets as we head through Thursday evening. Anything west of that track should fall as snow, and there is the potential to see some significant snow with this one as well, definitely, and some strong winds as well. So definitely going to keep an eye on this one for sure. Temperatures, as you head further east, again, above 0, 3 to 5 degrees, but the further west you go, those temperatures will be hovering near or just below 0 and well below 0 up across Labrador. So definitely keep an eye on that forecast over the next couple of days. It does look like it'll be windy as well. As we get into Friday and Saturday, things will calm down a little bit for your Christmas, and but it does look like we could potentially, at this point, see at least some flurries in the mix. Now for central Newfoundland, you're looking at snow for Thursday. Definitely it looks like a white Christmas for you. For western Newfoundland, same thing with that snow continuing through Christmas Day, it looks like at this point. And then for eastern Labrador, snow for you right through the weekend, and then similar forecast for western Labrador as we look at those temperatures climbing by the time we get to Saturday. Wanted to share this photo of sunrise at the cabin. Dawn shared this great shot with us, and if you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Nice place to self-isolate there. The holidays are here, and I'll see you tomorrow.